Good morning. It's good to see you all this morning. Welcome to everybody on internet land. Thanks for joining us as well. All right, so I need you all to stand up and sing with us. Let's sing.
Who breaks the power of sin and darkness, whose love is mighty and so much stronger, the King of glory, the King above all kings.
You know the song, let's sing.
Who breaks the power of sin and darkness, whose love is mighty and so much stronger, the King of glory, the King above all kings.
Who shakes the whole earth,
who shakes the whole earth with holy thunder, and leaves us breathless in awe and wonder, the King of glory, the King above all kings.
This is amazing grace.
This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. I sing for all that you've done for me.
Come on, let's sing. Who brings our chaos back into order?
Who brings our chaos back into order? Who makes the orphan a son and daughter? The King of glory, the King above all kings.
Who rules the nations?
Who rules the nations with truth and justice, shines like the sun in all of its brilliance. The King of glory, the King above all kings.
Come on, sing it out. This is amazing grace.
This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me.
Sing, worthy is the Lamb.
Worthy is the Lamb who was slain.
Come on, church, sing.
Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave.
Okay, come on, we're going to sing that again.
Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King.
Sing.
This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me.
Come on, let's sing. This is amazing grace. One more time. Amazing grace.
This is unfailing Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me.
All right, you guys are all standing up, all warmed up. Look around, big smile on your face. Go say hi to somebody. Can you do that? So how many of you guys had a great week this week? Couple of hands, that's good. Yeah, there we go. How many of you had an okay week this week? Couple more hands. How about a rough week? Yeah. Mine was particularly rough, but as the song says, God has a plan. A lot of times we don't see that plan. When we look back, we see it. But unfortunately, as we go through our week, we can't look back, right? But I want us to stop. Take a look back at the week and see the amazing things that God did for us this week. Because next week, when you face those same challenges, you know that He took care of it once, He'll take care of it again, right? Let's sing.
Walking around these walls, I know how they fall, but you have never failed me yet.
Waiting for change to come.
Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet.
Sing, your promise still stands.
Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. Still in your hands, this is my confidence. You've never failed me yet.
Let's sing.
I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again.
Jesus, you're still enough.
Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again.
Sing, your promise still stands.
Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You'll never fail
Sing that
me
again. sing.
I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I see it again. I see you move the mountains, and I believe I see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I see you do it again. I see you do it again.
Sing.
Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me yet.
Let's sing.
He is jealous for me. Love's like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy.
All of a sudden,
And all of a sudden, I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory. And I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me.
oh, how he loves us.
Oh, how he loves us so. Oh, how he loves us. How he loves us so.
Okay, come on, let's sing it again. You know the song.
He is jealous for me. Love's like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are. redemption by the grace in his eyes. Embraces an ocean, we're all sinking. So heaven meets earth like an unforeseen kiss, and my heart turns violently inside of my chest. I don't have time to maintain these regrets when I think about the way he loves us. He loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. Sing that again. He loves us. He loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he
Come on, let's sing He loves us. He loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. One more time, just the church. He loves us. Come on, sing. He loves us. One more time with all you got. He loves us.
He loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves.
Amen. You may be seated.
Why have you never donated blood before?
Intimidated to go in.
Needles are probably
Just gonna check your veins.
There's no needles yet. Well, I have a very special helper here today that I think might be able to help you through the process.
really.
Oh, hi.
Well, hi there.
Are you scared?
A little nervous.
Well, I'm gonna help you get through it today.
You ready to get started?
Hold your hand.
Yes, please. Thank you.
It's okay. If you want to hold my friend AJ, if you can.
Thank you.
Eye contact.
All right.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting cow.
Interrupting cow.
Move. Girl, I love your ripped jeans. Are your knees a little cold?
1, 2,
3.
1, 2.
Dang it.
Miss Emma, you are almost there.
Girl, you're almost done.
I should bring you every time I get a shot.
Well, there's actually a reason your helper here today is so familiar with the blood donation process.
So I have a blood disease that is called sickle cell anemia type SS. I've been hospitalized over 72 times and have blood transfusions over 70 times. When I was 5 months old, I went into kidney failure. I needed to have a lot of blood transfusions. And when I get the blood transfusions, it makes me feel like I'm me again, like I'm a kid, I can do anything. Thank you for donating from the bottom of my heart.
And girl, give me a hug.
Well, I think everything we've talked about that kept my focus the most.
And not only I'm thankful, but my mom is too.
On behalf of whoever's going to get your blood, thank you so much. It means so much to us. Without you, she would not be here. Thank you so much.
Group hug.
This makes it
1,000,000% worthwhile. I'm literally honored and privileged to be able to do this.
Would you do it again?
I would happily do it again.
I feel like we should pinky promise.
You're all done.
I can hug you with both arms.
You can save a life. Jesus is the only one who can save for eternity, but we can save a life today. So on this Sunday, we are having a blood drive, and you are invited to come and make a difference. The blood drive is going to be from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can sign up and register there. We still have a lot of slots open that we want to fill. And those slots can be filled by you. So, will you make a difference? I want to give a welcome to everyone here, especially if you are a visitor. I want to give you a special welcome. There is a Connect card in front of you and the chair in front of you. You can fill that out. And if you complete that and hand that in to a volunteer, you can get a gift. So please fill it out. Even if you're like a second time, third time, fourth time, and we have not yet, and you had not yet filled out a Connect card, please fill it out, and we have something for you. Another thing, I have a quiz, okay? And I wanted to get the gifts for you today, but I don't have them. So this is only for the kids. This is only for the kids, okay? And not only that, this is only for those who have met up with me. Okay, so if you have not met up, you may not know this answer. All right, so please grab a card or paper or something. I have a couple questions. The first question is, okay, you can't yell it out. This is the instructions, okay? The instructions are, you are going to write down the answer, and you're going to turn it in, okay? And if the answer is correct, I know you didn't think you were going to get a quiz, this Saturday, but you thought that just happened in schools? Well, it happens in church too, okay? If you get the answer correct, I have a prize for you next week, okay? So the first question is, what is the phrase that I use in my prayer to get accepted into the college I wanted? If you're under the age of 18, okay, I know, that's the trick. You have to be under the age of 18. So what is the phrase I use to get accepted into medical school? Okay, second question, okay? If you get any one of these right, but you get more prizes if you have them all right, okay? What is my favorite sport? So maybe if you haven't met up with me, maybe you know this answer. You can get something. You get at least one right. What is my favorite sport? Okay. Last question. Last question. This is a tricky one, and so I don't really expect anybody to get this right. So I'm going to make it easy, but it's super hard. And if you can find the answer out before next week, then I'll give it to you. This is going to be so hard. I think maybe only one or two people will get it. There are 3 life lessons that I've learned in life. If you can name one of my life lessons. Take a good guess. All right, moving on. So please meet up with me, guys. I see some faces here that I have not yet had time to spend individual time together with you. So please fill out the sign-up sheet. I am trying to beat Pastor Tim. Help me with that. Okay. Next thing, I told you about the blood drive. So please, again, sign up for the blood drive. But also, February 4th, we are having worship together. But we're also, afterwards, going to have a business meeting and a potluck. Okay? So please stay after service. We're going to have a church business meeting, and we're also going to have food. Okay? That's all.
Morning, church. How are you this morning? I don't know about y'all, but I'm glad you're here because God is in the house, right? Man. So thank you, music team, Glenn, everybody else. Thank you so much for leading us in musical worship. Shout out to our tech people who never get enough credit. But yeah. Oh, and up there too. So, my friends, my name is Brian. In case you haven't met me either, Pastor Tim has taken a little bit of a much-needed break today, so I have the opportunity, the privilege to be with all of you and share God's Word. And if you are online, thank you for joining us as well. Whether you're down the street in your jammies, a little jealous, or you're across the world, you're in South America or Europe or who knows where, thank you for joining us. You are part of God's family too. So my friends, years ago, when I was about 12 years old, I'm a young lad, there's this kid who came, about my age, who came to my church to do special music. Now, this kid played the saxophone, the alto saxophone, okay? Now, at age 12, I was not real big on music. I don't think I had a favorite artist or genre or anything. So music is just kind of casual, whatever. But this kid, again, my age, he's up there, he's wailing on this sax, and I thought that morning, I'm gonna do that. Like, how hard can it be? Right? So I asked my parents afterward, hey, can I learn to play the saxophone? And being the great parents they were, they said, all right, kid's got interest, we'll do that. So they, we went through the whole process. We rented a saxophone, got all the paraphernalia, the music stand, the metronome, that little guy, right? Found a music teacher, a guy named Craig Durst. He was a professional musician. I took lessons over at Guards Music in Glendora. It was pretty cool. And so, I was going to play like this guy, Severino Garospe, right? I have no idea what this dude's doing these days. I actually went to high school with him later on, right? So anyway, I started practicing, taking lessons. Give me a little bit of time, and I might be like one of these guys. Yeah, right? I could be like Paul Desmond. He had this it's Paul Desmond if you hear him, okay? Or my favorite guy next to him, Cannonball Adderley. Man, that cat could wail. I love that. Or I could be a little bit more funky, like John Coltrane. Yeah. Again, how hard could it be? Obviously, you know better than I did at age 12. Okay. Keep in mind, this is the late 80s. Okay, so I was practicing songs that were popular at the time or relatively recent. So I learned the theme song to MASH. Okay, which is kind of cool. The theme song to, see if you remember this one, Hill Street Blues. Remember? Okay, cool. The Pink Panther, which was made for the saxophone. I was pretty good at that one. I think that my teacher made me learn a couple of Madonna songs too. Like it? No, okay. So I would practice, and eventually I got pretty good. Okay? Not great. I wasn't spectacular. I wasn't Tony Rue. But who is? So I wasn't great, but I was pretty good. And I thought that, you know, I'm on my way to be one of those guys. But there was one thing I absolutely hated to do. Like, okay, I'll practice. Like, I got other stuff to do, but I'll practice. But one thing I hated to do, playing scales. Oh, you are with me, my people. Yeah, playing scales. So I thought that was like the absolute most boring exercise ever invented by human beings. Okay, like nobody's gonna go to the Hollywood Bowl, Carnegie Hall to listen to some dude play scales, right? It's not music, it is simply notes. Okay? So the thing is, my teacher just insisted, you will play scales. No, I won't. Yes, you will. So there's like this battle. So I grudgingly, gritting my teeth, which is really hard when you have like, you know, the sax in your mouth, right? So like, okay, I'll play scales. But over time, I got really busy, right? I started high school. My classes take priority. And again, I was good, but not great. So like, okay, you know, I should like focus on the things I am good at. I wasn't really dreaming like actually of being a professional musician. So I stopped playing scales. And I cut back on practicing. And eventually, by the time I graduated from high school, started college, I just stopped playing altogether. And I have not played my saxophone in 3 decades. Okay? With the sole exception, a few years ago, Sylvia's grandma turned 100, I think, and I played, probably very poorly, Happy Birthday on my saxophone for her, for grandma. All right, but I haven't played that thing in 30 years. But you know what? Here's the thing. I wasn't a natural. Like, I couldn't play by ear. I wasn't super great, but I could have been better. I could have been better. And you know what would have made me better? Playing scales, right? Playing scales, because it's playing scales that really teaches a person about music. You know, you learn the different sounds, you learn the different tones, you start to understand how everything works together. You start to see how music is really just math. I know, kids, sorry to disappoint you. It's math, it's counting. 8th notes, 16th notes, etc., right? But being a great musician requires mastering the basics, which means playing scales. Playing scales requires discipline. And I did not have that. I did not have discipline. And I really do wish I had kept at it. I really wish I had kept playing scales. Because now, at my advanced age of 29, now I understand why it was important, all right? But it's easy to let things slide, isn't it? You know, I'll do it tomorrow, or it's not that important. Somebody else's job, or the old standby, it's too hard. Or the other old standby, I just don't wanna. Yeah. And yet taking the time to do things, to do hard things, can have enormous benefit. And the thing is, you don't need me up here to tell you this, right? We know this. It's not like most of us set out on a task intending not to complete it, okay? Like, I didn't pick up my saxophone the first time thinking, man, I cannot wait to stop playing this, right? We don't do this. This is not natural. But there are a lot of little things that with repetition, doing things over and over and over, add up, right? Like reading stories to your kids, bedtime stories. Maybe you've had, like Glenn said, you know, maybe you had a rough day, a rough week, like I'm just tired, I don't really I just want to sit and watch the game. But no, you sit down with your kid, you spend a little bit of time reading. You do that over and over and over. chances are likely your child will end up enjoying reading, being a good student, being successful, right? How about my athletes? Where are my athletes? You're like my active people. Ooh, even the kids, cool, right? A few of you, okay, cool. Or like sports fans. How about sports fans? It's like everybody, and the rest of you, too much energy to raise your hands. All right. So, my favorite baseball player, favorite hitter, actually, is that guy right there. Anybody know who that cat was? Ted Williams. Check it out. Ted Williams of the Boston Red Sox. So he played from the 1930s to, I think, 1961, somewhere in there. Ted Williams was a so-called natural hitter. Okay, Ted Williams, supposedly he had 20/10 vision. Okay, so 20/20 means like you can see at 20 feet what someone with normal vision can see at 20 feet, 20/20. He could see at 20 feet what a normal person could see at 10 feet, which means his vision was twice as good as everybody else's. Okay, 20/10 vision. Stories say that Ted Williams could read a record label as it was spinning. Okay? So this dude, last hitter to hit 400, which is phenomenal. Okay? Here's the thing, Ted Williams took batting practice. Like, if anybody could get by without batting practice, it was him. He took batting practice every day. To the point that even Mickey Mantle, and if you know that guy, no slouch himself, would stand and watch this dude just take batting practice in awe, jaw dropped, right? Batting practice helped him be the greatest hitter ever, yeah? Or how about something else? Little things. M&Ms. You eat enough of those, they will add up to pounds. I'm wearing a baggy sweater for a reason today. Yeah, I love M&Ms. Like, I think they lace them with cocaine or something because they're addictive. You didn't hear that from me. But little things add up. Sorry. Stick with the script. All right. Thank you. Little things add up, right? Little things add up, and little things can multiply. Right? Little things can multiply. And so for the past 2 weeks, Pastor Tim has been talking to us about exponential growth and how God can take little things in our lives and use them to have exponential impact for God's kingdom. All right, so last week, Pastor Tim talked about evangelism, sharing the good news of Jesus to people you know, help them bring them to a relationship with God, which was a pretty awesome sermon, by the way. Like helping us rethink, how do you convey that message to people who might have been burned by the gospel or the gospel message by some people? Great sermon. But today, I'd like to talk to you about some little things that God can use to grow our faith exponentially. Right? Specifically, some behaviors. Okay, behaviors. Now, the fancy schmancy name for these behaviors, these activities that we can do is spiritual disciplines, right? Spiritual disciplines. And I know even just using that term, some of you might have just turned off your brains, okay? Because the word discipline can be uncomfortable, right? You might automatically think of getting a whooping from your dad at some point, something, okay? Might make you think of playing scales when you have to learn a musical instrument, discipline. But if you think about what discipline can lead to, right? Something I don't really want to do, but I know it's good for me. Keep doing it, right? You can end up like Ted Williams. You can end up like John Coltrane, yeah? Or a well-toned body that works like it should, yeah? So, we tend to think of spiritual disciplines as individual practices. This is just something I do for me, I'm all by myself. And while they usually are, they actually have a corporate intent, right? These activities, these behaviors we do on our own actually are intended for everybody else. Okay, and so in Ephesians 4, Paul talks about growth, maturity in Christian faith, and he talks about it this way, right? Paul says that God has called us, his followers, to be equipped for works of service so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Then we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, and that, of course, is Christ, our Savior. Because you see, for Paul, spiritual disciplines are actually, and if you read the rest of this passage, it'll be clear. For Paul, spiritual disciplines are about 5 things, okay? 5 things. Training, kind of like playing scales. Doctrine, having stuff up here. Character, what these do for you, how they transform you. Team effectiveness, like how can we together like move the kingdom of God forward? Team effectiveness and unique contribution. As there's something that you as an individual can provide that I cannot because of the way God has wired you uniquely. Paul says 5 things. Spiritual disciplines are about you and everybody else. And so, we practice these things for our own benefit, yeah, but in order to be a blessing to our fellow believers. And so I'm going to rip off Pastor Tim's use of Abram from 2 weeks ago, because remember that God said he would bless Abram. Why? Do you remember? Obviously you do not. Okay. So God says in Genesis 12, he tells Abram, I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great. Boom, done. No, I will bless you. Why? So you can be a blessing to other people. It's not just because I like you and I want you to have a great life. That's part of it, because I do love you, Abram. But here's the deal. I'm not blessing you just for your own benefit. I'm blessing you so you can extend that out there. You can be a blessing to somebody else. And so God wants an intimate, passionate relationship with you online as an individual. But he wants to use that relationship and that blessing so you can be his hands, his feet, his voice, his mouth, to bless others, to be a positive influence on people. Yeah. That's really what it's all about. Now, you can get online or go through scripture and look up spiritual disciplines, like what are they? And you can come up with a whole slew of lists, like different lists. There are 3, and there's 12, and there's 27, I don't know. So there are actually, I'm going to categorize these into 2 very broad categories of spiritual disciplines for you. Right, so we have disciplines of abstinence, or you could say disciplines of self-denial, and disciplines of engagement, or you could say maybe Christ in community. Okay? So we need both. Okay? It's not like, oh, it's self-denial, I'm not digging that, not doing that. I like the right side. No, we need both. Okay? We need both, and both are necessary for our maturity as Christ followers. And Christians have practiced these for the last 2 millennia, 2,000 years, right? So this is not, some new fancy schmancy 21st century thing. No. Christians have been doing this for a long time, right? And it would behoove us to follow in their footsteps, okay? So first of all, we'll hit the left side. The disciplines of self-denial, right? Solitude. Solitude is one of them. This is really hard in the 21st century, where we're always with people, and maybe you've got a big family or small kids, you gotta be around people all the time. Maybe your work is all about people. Solitude would be great, but I can't. But it's essential. It really is, right? This is when we refrain from interacting with other people for fairly short periods of time in order to be alone with God, to be found by God. Because we can get so busy that we neglect that relationship with him, right? Just attend to God's presence with us. And I don't know about you, just when the band was leading us, I was standing back there, I was watching all of you, I felt something. God is here. But sometimes, we need that personal moment with him too, beyond just what's corporate. Yeah, so solitude. Just go off, be with the God who made you. It's good for us. And tied to that is silence. Silence. So this is really hard for me because I make my living talking. Like silence, like I'm Irish, we talk. That's what we do, right? But this is when we refrain from speaking, like when we're in a quiet place, both externally but also internally, to quiet our minds, to quiet our whole self, to listen to what God might have to say to us. Or silence could also be a matter of being with somebody else and shutting up. Because a lot of us talk too much. And here's the thing, if we're busy talking, we're not busy listening. And sometimes other people need to know, hey, do I matter to you? And if we shut up, listen. It's a spiritual discipline. We're saying, you matter so much. I want to hear your words. Mine aren't as important. Silence. Silence. Fasting, everybody's favorite spiritual discipline, right? If you like to eat, I know it doesn't look like it. I like to eat. I like, different flavors, different tastes, textures of food. I'm already thinking about lunch, which is not good. This one can be hard. I get it. But going without food can actually serve different purposes, right? Like being reminded of God's constant care of our needs. Yeah? Being reminded of the abundance that most of us in this country enjoy, or going without food in order to focus on intensive prayer. So fasting can be total. I'm not going to eat or drink or something for like a week or something. It can be just partial, like maybe going without a certain kind of food. And this might sound kind of strange, but I've done this before. I'm not very good at fasting, but I've done this before. I love chocolate, okay? M&Ms are my kryptonite. Okay, seriously, I love chocolate. I have chocolate every day, probably twice a day. And I'm not exaggerating. Dark chocolate is the best. I tell my students first day of class, if you want to bribe me, I'm not supposed to say this, if you want to bribe me, dark chocolate, M&Ms, easy A. Sometimes they actually take me up on it. It's like, I was kidding. But no, seriously, so I love chocolate, and there have been certain times where I have purposely gone without chocolate, and I know that sounds kind of goofy, but I've gone without chocolate for like a month and a half. And here's the thing, when I instinctively, because I do this every day, when I instinctively reach for a candy bar or a bag of M&Ms or something, I stop and remember, oh, right, I'm not doing this. It directs my mind to God by avoiding this, right? So fasting, it's good for us. It's very good for us. And again, also fasting doesn't even have to be food. You could go without social media for a certain amount of time. Go without movies, without shopping, you name it. Fasting, refraining from a certain activity. Or how about Sabbath? What we're enjoying right now. Yeah? Doing no work, taking the time to rest in God's person, rest in God's provision, rest in God's presence, praying. I've heard it even said playing with God, right? Which is kind of an interesting concept. Can you play with God? I mean, God is like, the creator of the universe and stuff. Yeah? But enjoying his presence. We observe Sabbath, of course, one day a week. We're not going to do certain things, a certain period of time. We're going to gather corporately. You can actually practice Sabbath outside of a particular day. Like Wednesday night, 7 to 10 p.m., I'm not going to check my email from work. I'm not going to deal with whatever, because this is my time, midweek, whatever, to be alone with God. It's Sabbath. The rest of the world does not exist for the next 3 hours. We can do that. It takes discipline, though. It takes discipline. This one's kind of strange that I've been learning about. Secrecy. Like, wait, we're Christians. Everything's in the open. Come on. What kind of sermon is this? No, but secrecy. Hear me out. Secrecy can be a spiritual discipline, and Jesus actually spoke about this in Matthew 6. I forgot to put this on the slides. I apologize. In Matthew 6, Jesus said, okay, be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So when you give to the needy, when you do something good, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Because we need to find our sufficiency in God, and not necessarily in the praise of others. And I'm guilty of this, because I'm one of those people, I need words of affirmation. I want to know that people appreciate me. I'm serious, I do. Whether it's my students, my family, like you. Thank you, yeah, right, yes, appreciate it. But here's the thing, thank you, I needed that. I love you guys, I really do. But here's the thing, as much as I need that, I shouldn't need that. I should only need what he says about me, right? And that takes discipline. That's hard for me, it really is. And I was thinking actually a couple weeks ago as I was preparing for this, this can be really tricky for us as a congregation even. Just a couple weeks ago, Pastor Tim highlighted the good that our church, we together did last year, right? The amount of money that we donated to Holbrook and Kutavana, Ukraine, and so on. We contributed. Besides what you give to this congregation, we contributed a lot of money, a lot of time to other very worthy, very needy groups. And it feels good to pat ourselves on the back, doesn't it? Like, check us out, look what we did. I bet Ontario didn't do that. Yeah. I had to pick a random name. Sorry, Ontario, if you're right? But no, seriously, you think about this. Yeah, we did great, and that's awesome. We should. But we got to be very, very careful that we look to what he says, not about what other people say. Secrecy, yeah? This is partly what draws us closer to God. And finally, the discipline of submission. And this is when we choose not to assert ourselves, even if we're in the right. When we don't assert ourselves in order to come under the authority, the wisdom, the power of Jesus Christ as Lord, as King, as Master. Because we, human beings, and I, Brian Plummer, we want our way, don't we? I want my way. I don't want to give up my right to, you fill in the blank. I don't want to do that. I got my rights. I'm an American. Yeah? But if Jesus really is our King, it's kind of glib when we say this. If Jesus really is our King, if we really mean what we say, then we need individually to practice submission to what we know to be his will. Yeah? And that's hard. That's real hard. So, we got 6 of them there. Okay. The other ones, the disciplines of engagement, we might think of these as a little bit more fun. Some of these you might be a little bit more familiar with, but they're still challenging. Okay. So first of all, Bible reading, Christian study. Okay. Whether you're reading scripture, you're reading books written by Christian leaders, like whatever, but study. Yeah, which is essential, because those of you who don't know me, so I teach history. I love history. I'm a history nerd. But I teach my students, many of whom couldn't care less about history. They think it's the most boring, irrelevant thing ever. I teach them, the number one way that we can know what happened in the past is by reading the words of people who lived in the past. Right? We read journal entries, diaries, we read letters, transcripts of speeches, any of that. Like these compilations of words are the thoughts, the feelings, the ideas of people who lived through the Civil War or voted for President Roosevelt, maybe marched with Martin Luther King. And in the same way, we have the words of God himself guiding us, giving us wisdom, giving us strength for life. And I know, the Bible is big. It's like 1,400 pages, okay? 1,400 pages. It's big. Parts of it are really slow, the begats and like all of that. Some things just don't seem relevant to our day. Some of it just seems, let's be honest, boring. But if you don't take the time to read God's message, God's words to you, how are you going to know what he wants of you? Yeah? So it takes time, I get it, but it's a discipline and it benefits us, okay? And worship, what we're doing right now, which I enjoy. I do, and I hope you do too. But of course, we can worship in just about any aspect of our lives. We can praise our God's goodness, our God's greatness. We can praise his beauty in words and music and ritual, even in silence. But we can worship God privately and in our daily activities. You might know of I think it was German, maybe it was French, a monk named Brother Lawrence. Right, Brother Lawrence. And Brother Lawrence apparently was this very humble monk, I think in the 18th century. And he even wrote in this very short book, which I recommend to everybody, it's called The Practice of the Presence of God. He said even, hey, you know what, washing dishes can be an act of worship. Just something simple, because it needs to be done, right? And in that moment, hey, God, this is awesome. You gave me a dish that I can eat off of, which means I've got food, which means you provide for me. Whoa, that's worship. Isn't that cool? Yeah? So anything that we can use to honor the God who made us, that is worship, and that's pretty awesome. Third discipline of engagement is prayer, which might sound weird because, I pray on my own. How's that a corporate thing? I've got a story for you a little bit later that I think will be illuminating of this. This is when, of course, we converse with God. Hey, God, this is what I'm experiencing. We tend to make requests of God, right? Hey, God, help me with my test if you're in school. Hey, God, help Aunt Betty to feel better or whatever. But prayer is about interceding with God for other people. Yeah, interceding with God for other people is when we lift others up to God, ask for their well-being and not necessarily my well-being. Yeah. Prayer can be simply silence. Prayer can be simply listening to what God might have to say. Because again, sometimes we just gotta shut up. Yeah. What else? What else do we have? How many of you came to the conference last year on friendship? Friendship. A few of you. Soul friendship can actually be a spiritual discipline. Soul friendship. And so this is when we intentionally engage with fellow disciples of Jesus in prayerful conversation, other spiritual practices. And this can take the form of small groups. By the way, if you haven't signed up for a small group, you have the opportunity right after church. There's a table right out there. Lists, you can sign up. You can talk to Dr. Wallstrom over here. Small groups, your opportunity to engage in a spiritual discipline, in soul friendship. You should do this. So small groups is one way that we can do this. Maybe having a one-on-one spiritual mentor, maybe an accountability partner. Having a close, trusted Christian friend can lead us closer not only to another one of God's creations, but also closer to Jesus himself. Because if we really are, the temple of the Holy Spirit, right? Jesus is in you, And we can engage with Jesus through each other. And another discipline of engagement, and this might sound like an oxymoron, is personal reflection. Looking in. Personal reflection is paying attention to our inner self in order to grow in our love for God and our love for others and ourselves. Because sometimes, we don't like ourselves, let's be honest. But if you take the time to really look inside, hey, what's really going on inside me? Like, what's really motivating me? How am I really thinking about other people? This is a spiritual discipline. And the Psalms actually model this very well, very, very well, because you see the whole range of emotions just laid bare over there. And even though personal reflection might seem like it has nothing to do with engagements, it actually allows us to see where we personally might be falling down in our own relationships. And so I was thinking of an example to share with you, and I thought, okay, I don't really want to do this publicly. I'm going to tell you guys something I've never told another human being. In fact, I don't think I've even told Sylvia. Might want to turn the video off. I don't want this going around the world. No, I'm kidding. So here's the thing. I know how personal reflection in terms of other people, I know how this works. I've seen it happen in my life. So years ago, I did not want to go to funerals and weddings, okay? I just didn't want to go, the time, but really also it's just, like, I don't even know that many people, and so many of the people whose funerals I was being called to, invited to, like, I don't feel like I really know these people, so if I don't know you very well, why would I go to your send-off? Weddings, a lot of them are, like, Sylvia's friends from work. I don't know them, so like if I don't even know you, why would I go to your wedding? Come on. So I just, as a general rule, I'm probably not going to go to your funeral or wedding. Okay? No, not you. No. Don't take that out of context, people. Let me finish my story. God. All right. Back in the day, you guys are terrible. Man, don't let that guy on the stage anymore. So here's the thing. So a few years ago, I was doing this very thing. I was reflecting. I was just sitting, thinking, about like my motivations, like how I interact with people. And it dawned on me this one day as I was looking inside, looking real deep. Wow. You know why you don't want to go to weddings and funerals? Because I saw it as a great big inconvenience. Like, how dare you die and inconvenience me? How dare you, fall in love, go off and get married and mess up my Sunday afternoon? I got football to watch. For real. And I'll tell you though, when that dawned on me, I was horrified. I was mortified. How dare I call myself a follower of Jesus Christ if that's how I really deep down think about his creation? How dare I? And I'll tell you, that hurt when I realized like how ugly I was. It hurt. But as a result of that, I grew because I realized, okay, like, how do you show that you care about other human beings created in the image of God? You go to their funerals, you go to their weddings, you celebrate, you mourn. That's what it's about. But it took doing that hard work. Difficult though it is, ugly though it might be, it took that hard work. Yeah? So, last though, but not least, an essential discipline of engagement is service. Service. And so this is where we humbly serve God. We overflow with his love. We overflow with his compassion to others, especially those in need. And so this entails generosity, a little bit. Whether it's with our time, with our money, other kinds of resources, talents, whatever. Service. Service. Now, I know what you're thinking. Man, 12, that's a lot. I gotta do all those? Really? You're probably thinking one of two things. You're probably thinking either, wow, that's a lot. I can't wait to try some of that out. Or you're thinking, wow, that's a lot. No way I can do any of that. Yeah. Or you might be thinking, wow, that's great. I don't have time. Or you could be thinking, wow, a little thing like silence or Bible reading, what good is it actually going to do? What good can a little thing actually do in the real world? Now, it can do a lot. And I know I'm going kind of long. I know Pastor Tim, he is like the model of conciseness, and I love him for that. Right? I love that guy. I'm a teacher. I'm wordy. I'm sorry, but you will get lunch at some point. But I've got a couple of stories that help illustrate this that I hope will encourage all of you and all of us, me even, that this stuff matters. It really does. It matters for us as individuals. It matters for us corporately. Okay? So first of all, we as Christians, we know that we're supposed to pray, right? We know that we're supposed to pray. But if you're normal, I'm sure the thought has crossed your mind, does it really make any difference? Does it really matter? And of course, the answer is yes, it does. But there's a story that I remember Pastor Tom told years and years ago. It stuck in my mind, and I thought, man, let me go back and gather the details on that. I'm a little fuzzy on some of them. So I found it. This is a true story about a guy named Bob Hunter. Bob Hunter. Now, Bob Hunter was an American businessman, fairly wealthy individual. 1994, so almost 30 years ago, 1994, Bob is a brand new Christian. He's been converted. He has this good friend named Doug, and Doug, is kind of guiding him, saying, hey, you might want to do some of that. And, including prayer, like you talk to God. This is, how the whole Christian walk works. And so Bob Hunter is talking to his buddy Doug, and he's saying, hey, it's like, I'm reading my Bible, and it says that with faith and prayer, you can move mountains. Yep, it says that. Okay, so, like, really, seriously, do you really believe that? Like, really? Is that for real? And Doug says, well, yeah, it is. It's like totally legit. And in fact, I believe this so much. What do you say we have a bet? I know you're a betting man. How about this? I want you to pray for 45 days. 45 days, one prayer, okay? Let's see. What do you know about Africa? Bob says, it's a continent, I think. Okay, all right, cool. So basically, you know nothing about it, pretty much. Okay, cool. So, Bob, I want you to promise me, next 45 days, every day, I want you to pray, God help Africa. Okay? Cool. At the end of 45 days, if you believe that you have not seen a mountain move, I'll give you $500, no questions asked. Okay? If after 45 days, however, you do believe that you have seen a mountain move, figuratively, literally, whatever, you owe me $500. What do you say? Bob says, you are on. So next day, Bob starts praying, God help Africa. God help Africa. I don't know much about it, but God help Africa. About a week later, Bob is at a fancy schmancy dinner. He's sitting next to a lady he's never met before, rather elderly lady, and they strike up a conversation, and Bob finds out that this woman runs an orphanage in Uganda, which is a country in, right? You know more than Bob. So it's a country in Africa. And of course, Bob's ears perk up. He says, oh, wow, cool. And so he starts plying her with questions. Hey, so where exactly is Uganda? And so she tells him, and where in the country is your orphanage? And so they start talking about this. And the lady asks him, okay, it's like, what's your interest in Africa, dude? And so he's kind of sheepish. He says, well, I got like a bet going on with my buddy about prayer. And so she says, oh, okay, well, tell you what, since you obviously show interest, you want to come to Uganda and check out my orphanage? Okay, cool, let's do that. So Bob goes to Uganda, he goes to the orphanage, and he meets all the kids, and his heart is moved. He sees like the desperate need of all of these orphans, these children. He goes back home, he hits up all of his buddies, and they raise a bunch of money. They buy like clothing and supplies and toys and things, ships it all to the orphanage in Uganda. Boom, done. God help Africa. God help Africa. About a week later, Bob gets a call from the woman who heads up the orphanage. And the lady says, oh my word, Mr. Hunter, you have no idea how much the kids, just like what you did for, like the clothes, they're so happy with that. They're so happy with all of those toys. Like your generosity blew us away. The children though, like, I hate to burden you, but the children would love to thank you personally. Would you come back to Uganda so they can thank you personally? Bob says, okay, cool. He goes back to Uganda. They throw this big party, and the kids are all there. They thank him. Of course, he's like weeping. I didn't do anything, right? But like he's like, okay, this is great. Like I did something good, awesome. While he's at the ceremony, there's a phone call for him, for Bob Hunter, at the orphanage, and it's the president of Uganda. And so he tells Bob, he says, hey, Mr. Hunter, I've heard about what you and your friends did for this orphanage in my country. I'd like to meet you. I'm actually going to send my car to the orphanage. It'll be there in about an hour, so be ready. I was like, okay, never met a president before. That's new. Ceremony ends. Car's there, the limo is there. Bob gets in the back. The president of Uganda is in the back of the car. Okay? So they drive around the countryside, and they're having a chat, and at one point, they pass by this kind of enclosure sort of thing, like tall fences, barbed wire, razor wire on top, soldiers with guns, surrounding this whole enclosure. Inside, there are a bunch of people, a bunch of men. They're in rags, they're like flies buzzing around. Things look very iffy, if you know what I'm saying, right? Like things like the living conditions are awful. And so Bob asks the president of Uganda, hey, what was that we just passed? And the president says, oh yeah, those guys, those are political prisoners. Oh really, why? What did they do? They disagreed with me. Okay, and they're my enemies. Like, we lock them up, that's what you do. And of course, Bob, he's being a good freedom-loving American. Like, you can't do that. You don't lock people up because they disagree with you. Like, come on, to the president of the country, right? So like, you absolutely cannot do this, right? And so the president's just like, my country, shut up, right? And so they have this like argument, and like there's like tension in the back of the car. Finally, Bob gets dropped off at his hotel, and the president goes his way. Bob goes back home. About a week later, in the meantime, God help Africa, God help Africa, God help Africa, daily. About a week later, Bob gets a phone call from the State Department, right? And the person he talks to says, hey, Mr. Hunter, would you be willing to come to Washington, D.C., because the Undersecretary of State for Africa would like to speak with you. I said, why? Well, I can't really tell you, just can you come? Okay. So Bob goes to Washington. He meets with the Undersecretary of State for Africa, who says, Mr. Hunter, on behalf of the government of the United States, I want to thank you for what you have done for Uganda. Bob says, why? Because I gave some toys to some kids? What's that about? And the secretary says, well, no, it's about the political prisoners. What about the political prisoners? Wait, you mean you haven't heard? No. He says, well, recently the president of Uganda released all of the political prisoners. And he says it's because of something you said to him. And Bob says, what did I say to him? Like, we argued. And the secretary says, well, here's the thing. Like, we have been trying literally for years to get the president of Uganda to release these people. And he always shut us down. What did you say to him? Bob says, I don't remember. I don't know. Right? And so, like, wow, that's like really cool. God help Africa. Wait. But it doesn't end there, because a little while after that, Bob gets a call from the president of Uganda who says, Mr. Hunter, I'm actually forming a new government, and I want you to come here and help me pick my new cabinet. Bob says, I'm a businessman. I know nothing of politics. Why me? And the president of Uganda says, because you are a man of wisdom, and I trust you. Bob says, okay, yeah, you throw that at me, fine, okay. He goes to Uganda, helps the president pick his new cabinet. Here's this guy who, one little prayer daily, God help Africa. And God uses him to change an entire country's history. Does prayer work? I think so. Yeah. But there's another story. And it's a story you might be familiar with. But I want to tell you this story from a little bit different perspective. And this story takes place about 2,000 years ago. And Jesus is busy walking around first century Palestine, and he's doing some pretty amazing things. He's preaching amazing sermons, he's healing people, he's casting out demons, he's bringing hope to the hopeless, pretty awesome stuff. And he ends up at the end of the Sea of Galilee. And literally thousands of people are swarming him. He's like a first century rock star. And now what's about to happen is the only miracle outside the resurrection, the only miracle that's recorded in all four Gospels. Only one. All four versions tell the same basic story. They're slightly different, but the basic story is this. Jesus has been with this crowd of well over 5,000 people all day. The crowd's getting kind of restless, and probably like some of you, hungry. Stomach's kind of churning a little bit, yeah. Now, Matthew, Mark, and Luke note that Jesus challenges his disciples to feed the crowd. But only John contains one little detail that the others miss. The disciples bring Jesus 5 loaves of bread, 2 fish, but only John notes where they came from. Only John. Because Andrew says to Jesus, okay, so here's a boy. He's got 5 small barley loaves, a couple of fish, but then, because I'm a cynic, how far are they going to go? Like, Jesus, dude, 5,000 people. Okay? Now, who brings these meager bits of food to Jesus? It's a boy. Now, in Jewish culture, a boy became a man at age 13. So a boy essentially is a kid. He's like 9, 10 years old, maybe 8, 7, I don't know, but he's minimum under the age of 13. And we tend to see this story about feeding the 5,000. This is about Jesus, it's about the miracle, as we should see it this way. But I think we need to take a minute, especially in this context, to look at the kid. Because the kid, believe it or not, is the key to the whole story. Right? Now, first of all, we don't know if this unnamed boy was with his family or if he's alone. Is he a dedicated follower of Jesus? He's heard of him before. Did he just skip school that day? You know, Jesus is in town. I'm going to slide out of class, go see what's going on. We don't know. But second, and you might know this, this is the kid's lunch. A little bit of bread, a little bit of fish. This is the kid's lunch. Maybe he grabbed something from a snack vendor in town. Maybe his mom made this for him for school. Either way, this is the kid's food probably for the whole day. Third, keep in mind that the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000 is even bigger than it seems, because you probably know this too. The 5,000 refers only to men. Okay, so we got who knows how many women and children, like this little guy, as well. So easily could have been twice that, 10,000. I've seen estimates up to 20,000. That's a lot of people, a lot of folks. Okay, now, even if you take the low side of 10,000, do you honestly think only one person in the entire crowd has food with him? Like, for real, out of 10,000 people, one? I doubt that. I really doubt that. I would bet almost anything that a bunch of people in this crowd of thousands had food with them. Maybe they just got snacks with them. Maybe they got a full picnic lunch. But somebody in there has got something. You know this. Now, there are two versions of this story. Two versions. One version in Mark says that Jesus sends his disciples into the crowd to see what food is out there. All right? And in the other version, the disciples just kind of show up in front of Jesus saying, hey, we got a little bit of bread and fish here. Okay? Now, here's the thing. Out of all of these thousands of people hanging out on the hillside in front of the Sea of Galilee, only one person, a kid, answers the call and says, I got this. Only one. All the other people who had food with them that day held it back. All of them. They didn't give it to Jesus to use. And you can say, okay, they're being selfish. They're awful, horrible people like Brian when he didn't want to go to a wedding. Okay? Selfish, maybe. Maybe they're just being cautious. Maybe they're just being realistic. I mean, even the disciples said, it's not going to go far, Jesus. Look at the numbers. Crunch the numbers. Okay? Maybe they wanted to be sure they had enough to eat themselves. Like, why should I sacrifice when everybody else was not responsible? I was responsible. I thought ahead. Okay? But this is exactly what the kid did. Like, I'm sure the kid had the same thought. If I give up my lunch, I'm going to go hungry. I'm not going to have enough. Like, I'm giving it away. Okay? Or maybe he's thinking, like any good kid would, like, my mom is going to be so mad at me. Like, my mom made that for me. Or, like, my dad's going to give me a whipping. Right? Like, he's probably a natural, normal kid, But here's the thing. The kid didn't hold back. Like, he gave what he had, little though it might have been. And I don't know, again, maybe this kid had seen Jesus before. Maybe he had faith in Jesus' power. Maybe he had faith that Jesus could do something amazing with what he provided. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe he's just a good kid. Maybe he's just generous. I don't know. And I don't know how Jesus reacted either, because John doesn't tell us. But knowing Jesus, knowing my Lord, I think Jesus stopped. And I think Jesus did something before he worked the miracle that fed thousands and thousands of people that day. Because I think when the disciples brought this little 8-year-old dude to Jesus, I bet you anything, Jesus knelt down and looked that kid in the eye and smiled. I could see him reach out his hand, pat the kid's cheek, tousle his hair. And I could hear him say, good boy, brave boy. I am so proud of you. I am so proud of you. I am going to do something amazing in just a minute because of you. Because see, here's the thing. I'm not sure if Jesus would have fed the 5,000 if somebody hadn't have stepped up and volunteered his lunch. It could have happened. Jesus totally could have said, okay, fish, boom, right? Like wave his hands over the sea, all the fish are like jumping onto the shore. He could have made manna rain down from the sky. He could have done this easily, okay? But sometimes, most of the time, Jesus chooses to partner with us to do great things. Right? And this is what it means to be his hands, his feet in this world. Jesus works together with us. He takes what we have, what little bit we have, and he makes great things happen. And so I can just see Jesus telling this kid, thank you for your generosity. Can you imagine Jesus thanking you? It's supposed to be the other way around, right? But thank you for your generosity, little guy. Because you see, you and I, together, we are going to feed all of them. Us. You made this happen, little guy. I couldn't have done this without you. And Jesus miraculously fed well over 10,000 people that day because one little guy said, I don't have much, but here's what I got. And so little things that we do, right, the spiritual disciplines, 12 or 3 or 27 or whatever, it's the little things that may seem like they take a lot of work, they take too much time, they're too hard, it seems like they don't make any difference. It's those little things that change ourselves, but can serve to change the people around us and ultimately change the world for the better. Yeah? And Paul tells us in 1 Timothy 4, he tells us to set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, and faith, in purity. And he goes on to say, okay, so here's the thing, be diligent, you could say be disciplined, be diligent in these matters. Give yourself wholly, completely to them so that everybody may see your progress. Persevere in them, be disciplined, persevere in them, because if you do, you will save both yourself and your hearers. Yeah, those little things, those disciplines that don't seem like they amount to much, do. They do. So what do you have in your hand right now? What do you have in your hand right now? Like the little guy who gave up his lunch. Do you have some money you could donate to Holbrook rather than buying a latte that you probably don't need? Right? Do you have time to listen to an elderly person who might be lonely? You have some expertise you could use to share with the church so everybody here can benefit? Like, what do you have in your hand right now? Right now. Like, what little thing can you do right now that Jesus can use to do big things? Like, what little thing can you do that Jesus can multiply exponentially? One lunch turned into 10,000. Because it can change an individual, you. It can change a family. It can change a crowd. Or like with Bob Hunter, it can change an entire country. Yeah. So my friends, today, I know I'm long, I know, I'm sorry. But today, I want all of us to challenge ourselves to do hard things. Because those hard things lead to greatness on behalf of God's kingdom. And so today, it's traditional for us in North Hills to put what we hear into practice. Because it's one thing to listen and then just walk away. But what can we do to put God's message, God's word into practice? So today, over lunch, on your way home, whatever, I want you, with somebody special, to talk about a time that discipline was not exactly pleasant for you, not a happy experience. But describe a situation maybe when it was. And then for your walk, for your action, your activity, the way to actually let the rubber meet the road, I want you to pick one, just one. There are 12 of them, just one. Pick one of the spiritual disciplines and start this week with the intent of growing yourself, but growing God's kingdom. That's what we're here for, my friends. Yeah. May God bless you. May his face shine upon you. May God use you and you to do amazing things for his glory.
Love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God.
Come on, let's sing.
I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God.
All my life you have been faithful.
All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire. In darkest night, you are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. I have lived in the goodness of God.
Come on, sing. All my life you have been faithful.
All my life you have been faithful.
All my life you have been so, so good.
All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able,
I will sing of the goodness of God.
I will sing
Of the goodness of God. Come on, sing all my life.
all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God.
Your goodness is running after me.
Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I
that one more time. I want to hear you sing All My Life.
All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God.
I will sing of the goodness of God.
I will sing of the goodness of God.
Father God, please accept this prayer. That in everything that we do, the little things, I pray that we can take those little things and that you will multiply them. And not just change us, not just change our family, not just impact our church, our community, but I believe we can impact this entire world. Amen. Have a good rest of your day.
Jesus, bring new light out of me. Jesus, Jesus.